Welcome to today's explainer. Diving into the source material for today, I realized we might literally need to throw out everything we think we know about healing from emotional abuse. We always picture it as this loud, dramatic thing, right? Like grand exits and sudden breakthroughs. But today, we're going to look at the real, hidden metrics of progress. Get ready, because what I found is that true healing is way quieter, kind of strange, and honestly, so much more profound than we've ever been taught.
Okay, let's dive into this with a story that perfectly hits the nail on the head. Picture a guy standing in the coffee aisle of a grocery store. He reaches out and grabs the coffee he actually likes. Not the default brand he usually buys just to keep the peace at home, but his favorite. He's halfway to the checkout line before he even realizes what he just did. There was no internal risk assessment, no rehearsing a defense for bringing home a different bag. He just wanted it and he took it. He's standing there totally floored, realizing that for the first time in years, a simple want of his didn't have to pass through mental customs. To everyone else in the store, completely invisible. But for him, this is literally what a massive leap in trauma recovery looks like.
To really get why that coffee moment is such a game changer, we need to talk about Section 1, the myth of leaving first. So, does healing actually require leaving first? Well, there's this deeply ingrained idea out there that recovery is strictly sequential. Step 1, you escape. Step 2, no contact. And then finally, the healing begins. And yeah, for sure, total repair often needs physical distance. But what the source material points out, and I found this absolutely fascinating, is exactly what gets damaged in these dynamics. It's your self-trust. It's your grip on reality, your personal preferences, your self-empathy. Those systems, they live inside of you. They aren't tied to your physical address. Because of that, the repair work can actually kick off exactly where you're standing right now. Healing and leaving are two totally different tracks, and the first one absolutely does not have to wait for the second.
Which brings us to a really tricky part of all this. Section 2, why healing hides.
If you can heal from the inside out, why on earth does genuine progress usually feel completely invisible or even scary when you're the one going through it? Well, there are three counterintuitive reasons for this. 1. Healing is actually subtraction. 2. Early healing frequency feels worse. And 3. The environment is going to vote against you. Let's break these down, because your internal radar for spotting your own progress is probably a bit off right now.
First up, subtraction. The human brain is notoriously terrible at noticing when something doesn't happen. Think about those intense, elaborate arguments you rehearse in the shower. We've all been there. Or how you might pre-draft a totally normal sentence before you say it out loud, just to dodge a fight. Healing is the quiet reality of those things simply not happening anymore. You could live through weeks of genuine, measurable improvement and completely miss it, because the progress is made entirely out of anxieties that just didn't fire. No alarm bells means no signal, so it is super easy to overlook.
And this brilliantly illustrates the second reason healing hides. Early recovery often feels like things are getting worse. For years, you might have relied on emotional numbness. It acts like an anesthetic just to get you through the day. But when you start healing, that anesthetic wears off. And what hits you first isn't instant zen. Nope, it's all the grief and anger you're years behind on processing. So month 2 of real healing can look like a person who is supposedly fine suddenly falling apart. But actually, it's not a step backward. It's sensation coming back to a numb limb. The pins and needles hurt way more than the numbness did. But that's precisely because the nerve is finally back online.
Because real healing can be invisible or painful, it's incredibly easy to settle for substitutes. Let's look at Section 3, the 3 false positives. We're looking at 3 things that masquerade as healing but are really just upgraded survival tactics. The first is fluency. This is when you memorize all the psychology jargon, DARVO, hoovering, narcissistic supply. It makes you feel in control, but vocabulary without a change in behavior isn't healing. It just makes you the cleverest person in the cage. The second trap is better management. You perfectly navigate the blow-ups. You don't take the bait. It feels like you're winning, but honestly, it's just optimized compliance. It's a sleeker appeasement system. And the third is armor. You build this cold, impenetrable shell where nothing hurts you. But a splint is not a healed bone. In full armor, you block out the bad stuff, sure, but you also block out the sound of your kids laughing and the color of the sky. You've built a bunker, not a life.
The biggest giveaway between fake and real progress is this. False positives are entirely organized around predicting and surviving someone else's mood. Genuine healing is organized around rebuilding your own internal self. It's about letting the music and the full spectrum of color back in, no matter what the weather is doing outside your window.
So how do we actually spot the real thing? Let's get into Section 4, real signs of repair.
Let's move to and see how this builds, right? Genuine repair actually expands outward in 3 distinct tiers. It starts at the innermost core with the body tier, moves up to the mind tier, and finally reflects out into the world tier.
We always start with the body tier because your body logs the damage first, and it literally cannot fake its recovery. The very first sign of healing is often a physical unclench, like a tight jaw or a hunched shoulder finally going off duty, even if the person stressing you out is still in the house. Next, your sleep changes. You stop waking up at 3 a.m. pre-braced for an argument. Then you get what I call an acoustic stand-down. Footsteps in the hallway stop sounding like a blaring alarm and go back to just being footsteps. And my absolute favorite one? A shorter driveway airlock. Instead of sitting in your parked car for 15 minutes taking deep breaths before you go inside, you just open the door and get out of the car.
Moving up to the mind tier, we start seeing these huge cognitive shifts. Just like our guy in the coffee aisle, your internal desires start clearing customs without paying a tax. That exhausting inner tribunal, the imaginary courtroom where you're always defending your actions, it just disbands. When the other person is in a terrible mood, instead of you spiraling into a panic trying to fix it, your brain just casually goes, right on schedule, and you go right back to watching your show. And eventually you hit a point where you can tell the story of what you went through just plainly, in a normal voice. No shaking, no numbing out. And finally, we hit the relational, or the world tier. This is where your need for an external verdict just fades away. You don't need anyone else to ratify your reality anymore. You are a quorum of one. Naturally, as you get more stable, old friends and healthy people start drifting back into your life. But the absolute deepest sign in this whole stack, your empathy pipes finally point inward. When you look back at the past version of yourself, the one who was appeasing, the one lost in the fog, you don't feel contempt anymore. You feel genuine, unforced compassion. You finally realize you were just doing your absolute best in a system that was literally designed to beat you.
Now, seeing all these tiers, it is super tempting to turn them into a brutal pass-fail checklist. But we cannot do that. Let's pivot to Section 5, the ultimate progress metric.
So, the crucial point is this. We absolutely have to ditch the wrong metric. Healing is not the total absence of a relapse. If you have a horrible Sunday where you fall right back into your old appeasement habits and you spend 20 minutes sitting in the driveway airlock again, a checklist brain is going to scream that you failed. It'll say the whole year was a waste and you're back at square one. But guys, a bad Sunday is literally just a bad Sunday. The right metric, and really the only one that matters, is a shrinking recovery time.
The measure of a healing person isn't that they never, ever go back in. It's that they find the door faster every single time. That anxiety spiral that used to trap you for a solid month, now it only holds you for a week. The interaction that used to cost you 3 days of self-doubt, now it just ruins your evening, and by morning, you're fine. Progress here is incredibly nonlinear. You're going to visit all the old rooms again. But finding the exit faster, that is the undeniable proof that you are recovering. So track that. Read your own signs generously, and always, always round your success up.
To bring this all home, let's look at the end of our coffee aisle story. Our guy bought his favorite coffee, took it home, and made a cup in his kitchen right while the tension in the house was thick enough to cut with a knife. And you know what happened? Absolutely nothing. No scene, no blow-up. Nobody else in the world knew that a massive, life-altering milestone had just happened, because from the outside, it was just a guy boiling water. True healing is invisible. Nobody's going to show up to hand you a certificate because an imaginary tribunal didn't convene, or because you walked up your driveway in one go. You have to be the one to witness your own milestones.
The world is never going to throw a parade for these quiet little victories, so you have to honor them yourself. Because it's working. I promise you, it is probably working much better than you even realize. So I want to leave you with this question to think about. What was your coffee moment? What was that tiny, totally invisible non-event that proved to you, without a shadow of a doubt, that your internal world was finally mending? Take a second to recognize it, celebrate it, and let it fuel your quiet recovery.